Hello, and thank you for joining us today, specifically for tuning into our new show, More. This show will take a countercultural approach to looking at more. Whether you ask yourself questions actively to help determine your more, or just wonder if there is more, this show is here to offer you different answers to that same question. Because when most of us consider what more there is, we tend to think of it in terms of material and professional gains. Automatically, we look externally and answer the question based on what we have. Pursuing that more is exhausting and leaves us feeling frustrated and unsatisfied. So let's try to be creative and answer it another way. With us today is Brian Cooper. Brian is a great example of a person who has realized personal, professional, material, and public gains in his life. He has over 25 years of experience in a wide variety of executive positions throughout the sports and entertainment industry. He was part of the executive team that brought Toronto its first NBA franchise team. He was the president of the Toronto Argonauts and credited with the revival of professional football in the Toronto marketplace. Brian currently sits on the charitable boards of the Toronto Blue Jays Foundation, the Toronto Grand Prix Champ Car Foundation, the Wayne Gretzky Foundation, and Canada Basketball. Today, Brian is the president and CEO of his own very successful sports and entertainment company. What makes Brian a unique anomaly and such a privilege for us to have is that he did it all on his own terms. He is a compelling example of someone who looked inside for more and found a way to turn his passions into successes. Basically, a dumb jock who's actually brilliant. So Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on More TV.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, Shiva.
Thank you. Often before we start realizing more, we seek validation from others, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us a little bit about that and how that played out for you. When you kind of got to where you got to, mm-hmm. and you were looking around at, okay, who do I want to impress? Because that's part of it, right? We need to first kind of get a sense of we belong, we're accepted, who we are, work that jives.
I think we all start our careers looking for, where is my place? And then we start to look for the labels that we want to have on ourselves. I think my career started off as an accountant, working at an accounting degree, wrote my accounting exams, realized that I was in jail and that this is not what I was made to do in life, and it certainly wasn't what I was going to be happy with. So I started looking towards my passions, and sport happened to be one of my passions, and the business side of sport, we combined my accounting background with my passion of sport, turned into be a perfect marriage. At the time that I was doing it, it was somewhat of a new field, and the business side of sport had not developed. The television side of sport had, but certainly not the business side of it, whether it was agents or corporate sponsorship or all of the things that I'm involved with and have been involved with over the years. So in terms of validation, I think the validation I got was just from the sport industry in itself and looking at leaders that were in the sports industry. They may not have been in sport marketing per se because it was an evolving sector, but they had been leaders within the general field of sport.
So, and that's great, and I appreciate that, and I apologize if I wasn't clear in the question, because what I'm curious about is when you went and you became a CA or an accountant, and you decided that wasn't for you, there had to have been people along the way who you needed to kind of support either or decision. And so when you were I guess how aware were you of needing that validation?
I don't know, maybe I was counterintuitive. My validation came from, are you happy doing what you're doing?
Wow, good for you.
There's an old song, Take Your Passion and Make It Happen, from, I think it was a Splash Dance, or it was from an old movie, and an old song in the movie. But I firmly believe that if I was going to get out of bed and do something, it better be doing something I really liked. If I really liked it, it was not going to be work. If it wasn't work, I was going to excel at it. If I was going to excel at it, I was going to be happy. So I was fulfilling that cycle.
Wow.
And I did it at an early age, and at an early age I also started reading a lot of books that tried to give me a little bit of insight as to what drove me. And in fact, what drives people. And I think it was Dr. Norman Vincent Peale's first book is the one that I read, How to Make Friends and Influence Enemies.
That was actually Dale Carnegie.
It was Dale Carnegie, I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay.
You're exactly right. And I think at 11 I read that.
Wow.
And then I said, why do I need to make friends? I mean, if I'm good, why do I have to do that?
Wow, seriously?
Again, at a reasonably early age.
So did you have friends at school?
I think it was an insecurity. I was, no, I had lots of friends, but, at the time, I was looking for something more.
Wow.
I went through the usual religion and all of those avenues seeking.
I see, that strikes me like that's amazing because of that need to belong, that you were so clear in your own self that you didn't need to look for that outside of yourself.
Well, I would, I was searching. I wouldn't say I was so clear that I didn't need to, because I did feel, at a young age, I was in groups that gave you labels, that gave you automatic social circles, that gave you validation of who you were. I was like any other young guy. And I was that way at school a little bit, in university. But I always seemed to try to branch out on my own at times.
Well, we're going to have a quick break right now, so please stay with us on more online so we can hear more about Brian's journey and maybe ask ourselves similar questions. Stay with us. Welcome back to moreonline.tv. Thanks for being curious and joining us. I'm Sheba Varghese, and with me today is Brian Cooper. He's president and CEO of a company called Sports and Entertainment. Thanks for being here, Brian.
Enjoying it.
Perfect. So when we were last speaking with Brian, we were looking at the needs he had to be accepted and or validated. Inevitably, when we start examining why we are doing what we're doing and for whom, a whole different set of questions tend to come up for us. So when we look at that, Brian, as you kind of were starting to get validation or not really seeking it externally, I guess I'm curious, what changes were you noticing occur within you as you started to ask yourself,
I think it all goes back to, is this fulfilling me? Is this making me happy? Do I feel any better?
How did you know to ask that question? Like, what kid walks around with that question in their mind?
A troubled child, probably.
Well, that's great.
I come from a family of 8 children, and there was a lot of time to be with everyone else, but there was a lot of love, and it was a wonderful environment. Yet at the same time, you didn't have that one-to-one parental attention that you had. So you went out and sought the attention elsewhere, and that whether it was through neighbors or friends or brothers and sisters. But I think, and I think my siblings would vouch for this, I was always searching and looking for something else. I was always questioning, and I think I started to look inward for reasons of pure happiness of, what am I going to do when I get older? And at an early age, I was trying to figure out, what the hell am I going to be? And, not that it really matters any longer, but it's more the question, the answer to that is, who am I going to be? Not what am I going to be doing? And I think, there's been a lifelong search, and if you speak to my wife, I continue that search. Wow. And I think we all should.
Sure.
You shouldn't just be going on road and accepting what you have now. I think everyone has the opportunity till the day you die to learn more about you and make a better you.
So when you talked about kind of asking yourself, who do I want to be, what came up?
What makes me happy?
But so what are you looking for?
What do I value out of life? What are the characteristics I see in other people that I want to be like, that I think that is a good value, that's a good characteristic, that is someone who I think has their head on straight, and I think I want to have that value. And I think the reason I want to have that value is because I will be more at peace with myself at who I am, and I would definitely benefit greatly from it. And so, I look at my dad, which I think every young man does, and so, you pick out the values that he has, and you look at the other people that you work with. And you know what? I had a lot of work mentors that I realized they're just work mentors. They're not people mentors. They're not character mentors. And so I took what I could from them, but it was more, and even to this day, I could be less impressed with people that achieve a lot in work, and more impressed with people that achieve a lot because of their values. And, you look around the world, whether it's Nelson Mandela or the Dalai Lama, or from years ago, leaders that talked about values. I think today's world's changed.
Wow. Ryan, I'm just so impressed by everything that
Don't
you
be.
No, okay, well, I didn't even let me finish my sentence. I was going to say I'm impressed by your suit. I wasn't going to say by the content what you're saying. But no, what I'm impressed about is that you make it sound so simple. But inevitably, you had to have tripped and fallen and all over the place. And I think that, you know what, that's really where it's going to be the most compelling. Share with us some of the challenges, some of the forks in the road, because inevitably, for all those people who want to travel, make the same sojourn as you.
You know what? I have the same insecurities, and I remember as a teenage boy having those insecurities, wanting to be a part of the group, always sort of pulling back whenever I got too close, not opening up, and always pulling back, and questioning. Sometimes, too judgmental.
On yourself, on other people, on both?
On myself. Totally on myself.
And so what was the consequence?
And,
okay, so you judged yourself.
Well, not to judge myself. And,
you weren't good enough.
I wasn't good enough. I hadn't achieved enough. I remember waking up at 30-something, 32, and saying, felt like this big failure. That, financially, things are on a great path, but you haven't done this, and insightfulness in terms of as a human, you haven't, started the Peace Corps. I hadn't done all of the things I want, and I was just being completely hard on myself. I went into a bit of a depression for a bit of a period. I actually sought some psychiatric help. And I felt therapy was a whole opening of another book.
Sure.
Because now it's an independent discussion with someone that doesn't know you, but for what you tell them who you are. And that provides tremendous insight. And it's not the type of conversation I'd have with my sister, or I'd have with you, or a close friend, or whatever. This is someone that sees some similar traits in other people, someone that is looking completely objectively and is doing there for only one purpose, and that's to help you know you. And so I went through a divorce, which was very upsetting to all involved, and it really made you look inward and say, how can this happen, and what type of person, and the values, and I thought you were more enlightened, and you realize that's not about enlightenment. Those things, relationships, are all part of the bigger you, and so there are a lot of stumbles along the way. Believe me.
No, of course, and that's great. And your honesty and openness is really wonderful. When you talk, okay, so we get that you got your strength, you derived all that made you strong and powerful from within. And inevitably, though, you don't live on an island. There are lots of other people on the journey. You went through a divorce, marriage breakdown. I guess what I'm wondering is, what changed as it relates to how you viewed other people, what you respected in other people? Did you notice any changes in that at all, Brian, or was that kind of stayed the same?
Acceptance that, what I wanted for myself is not necessarily what other people want for themselves, or that they even realize what they want from themselves, and accepted that it's different for each one of you.
And did that impact how you respected people?
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
without a doubt, because I was trying to put my values, force my values in some instances on other people that were close to me.
So now let's talk about that a little bit, because you say it's forced, but I see that really about being aware and knowing what's most important to you. And
well, I agree as well, but some people do not care to look inward. Some people are very happy with who they are and what they are, and I believe that they haven't gone below the surface of their life. They just go from minute to minute. But I have siblings that I sit and I talk about, have you read this book? I mean, Eckhart Tolle's, have you read his latest book, or The Power Within, and they're looking at me like, that's great, shut up. You've heard this since you were...
Are we in the same family?
Well, exactly.
Adopted,
That's exactly. Where are you coming from? They're all great people. They're all great people, great parents.
But so then how did you allow that to influence you? If what you respected was that?
I think you have to... Well, I respected who and what they were, but that didn't mean I had to set those limitations for myself. And I go back to it again, that I think to the day that I die, that we, hopefully, that we can all be better at being who we are. And whether that's learning to give more, and it's not, let's do something that you're not going to benefit even while you're alive. Let's plant a tree that 20 years from now someone's going to be sitting under, or it's going to be a snow fence that's going to stop the highway from being blinded.
But for what reason? What would be the compelling reason for somebody when they know that, they're not even going to get to take the cherries or the apples from the tree? Why would they have an interest?
Because the moment that they're doing it that's the benefit. Knowing that they're doing it. That's the benefit right there. And it's even more insightful knowing that you're not going to get congratulated for it. And so, I think, in this world, we don't give enough. I mean, if you look at what's going on today, the people in China, whether it's the abuses of civil rights, but more importantly, the physical devastation from the quakes that are going on, and all of those things, and you look at what we have today, and we're worried about.
Why do I get this visual in my head of you sitting in a robe, cross-legged?
No, I'm not like that at all.
No, but I get this visual.
I meditate every day, and I have some elements of certainly, there are physical elements of being insightful.
But the reason, I guess, too, because I'm hearing you talk about altruism in a different kind of way, right? Like you're doing, and I guess I'm just curious about how one can be outwardly focused when they're not more inwardly sound. So you talk about, for example, relatives or friends who choose to not go below the surface, to ask themselves what their more is about and how to access it or reach it. So I guess I'm wondering then that all too often we have no shortages of foundations or organizations or poster children or whatever who like to say that from an altruistic kind of way, that this is what shows how great they are. But inside, they're really just, it's a window front, it's a storefront kind of covering. So I guess, from my perspective, my opinion, I'm more interested about the inside more. And the trees that get planted along the way, well, that's great and that's good and there's a need for them, but first things first. But having said that, I guess, we just need to have an understanding of why we do what we do.
A sound foundation of who you are. And
my concern, I guess, in that approach, when we kind of make a blanket statement, we're going to have people planting trees everywhere, which is good.
I use that as a metaphor
I understand.
for doing something that, for yourself, without knowing that the reward is going to be just for you at that moment and not outwardly. I think, all of these things are inward things. And I have to be very honest, I normally don't. We met and we had a nice conversation about this. And
this is a continuation.
Yeah, and I don't sit there and preach these to my friends. I'm constantly giving books to people.
You know what, let's take another short break. You're watching more. Please stay tuned, and we'll be back. Welcome back. You're watching more, and I'm here with Brian Cooper of Sports and Entertainment. So what you were highlighting, Brian, seems so profound because of the simplicity. Because of the
simplicity, yes, okay.
And so having said that, let's kind of go back a little bit, because the path that you're proposing or offering in terms of how we find our more was, of course you're giving us a Coles Notes version, but I want to kind of just recap a little bit if we can. The belonging side of things, if I may kind of repeat what I heard you say, please correct me, okay, if I'm wrong. What I heard you say on the belonging side is you knew intuitively you knew to not look outward for that kind of validation. You looked inside yourself, you started asking yourself, okay, what's working for me, what's not working for me? Great. That allowed you to then start to get to another side and start looking at who do I want to respect me and for what? And what is it that I respect about myself? So I'm not sure if we had a chance to really kind of get a better sense of that or not. Because when you talk about what you wanted to be respected for by those within the circles in which you traveled, can you say a little bit more about that?
Well,
like what was it that you wanted them to respect about you?
Well, my value system.
So I wanted
I was a couple of things. One, that I showed mutual respect, no matter what anyone else thought, that I always was open to their concepts and ideas and values. Two, that I treated everyone with the same respect that they afforded me, and that I was fair to everybody. And even today, I mean, when I've run a lot of companies over the years, it's not like I run the company. I'd like to think that I'm providing some leadership, but that I'm trying to gather the troops, and we're doing gaining ground and achieving objectives together.
I can't believe that those are the values that have gotten you where you've...
No.
Let's talk about the values that have. What are the values that you knew that people said, you know what, Brian Cooper is a guy we can, is a horse we can put our money on? What were they seeing about you that made them see that you weren't going to
I was driven.
Driven
I was
to
completely.
What, Brian?
I was driven to complete the task. I'm very task oriented. I was driven to, and part of it was to keep my reputation intact, that I was able to achieve these goals. I was driven, I think part of it comes from my background, to secure, and you go to those lower needs in life of, whether it's financial, whether it's the achievements that are known publicly. I was driven to do that, and then part of that is, making sure of acceptance, etc. But in the end of the day, I was driven by, I want to end up where I can make my own decisions and do what I want to do when I want to do it, and in order to do so, choose who I wanted to work with, choose what I wanted to work on, choose where I wanted to live, choose how much I wanted to work. I wanted the freedom. And so I think the freedom drove me more than anything else. And still to this day drives me. The value to get that was fairness in developing these things. It is, respect. It's human respect. And I also think when you go back to you talking about how I decided intuitively at an early age that I'm going to go my own way, even though I was still part of a larger group, I think kids today more than ever are their own. I mean, they don't need to be a part of or labeled or be accepted by. Kids today really go their own route, and I think that's just evolution of society, and you see it more in urban centers.
So, look, you're right, we do that, and I guess since that the kids, the group that we're trying to target and really want to offer some kind of real life examples of are the group that's kind of been where you were at 32, kind of waking up going, oh my gosh, what the, where am I, what's up, and...
When I did that, by the way, I had been, other people would say, boy, Brian Cooper's really done well and successful, etc. But that wasn't enough. Again, that goes back to the driven, to the freedom. You know
what, Brian? I would like you to promise that you're going to come back on the show because we're out of time and we didn't get a chance to get into it.
You're scaring me now.
I'm scared. Little does he know. But that's our time for today. And so my thanks to Brian Cooper, President and CEO of Sports and Entertainment Limited. We really appreciate you taking the time to come in and speak with us. On behalf of all those that will gain strength and insight from your journey, we thank you. It has been a real pleasure and honor to learn more about your thoughts and perspectives on what it means to self-actualize. So this is the first step, folks, in the whole pursuit. It's about putting a stake in the ground and deciding where there's more for you, and then for you to realize, make it happen in your life. So please know that you're invited back each week to join us in our journey towards self-actualization. And next week we'll be speaking with John Tory, the lawyer, CEO, and politician. Until then, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or questions, please do contact us via the blog. And thanks again for joining us on moreonline.tv. And remember, in all that you do, Do it for truth. Thanks.